Yeah, bingo, bingo, we're back. This is ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell, and we're talking about restaurants of Hawaii today. Very important. We talk about that's a major industry that keeps a lot of people at work, or if it's not operating, a lot of people at home. And Executive Director of the Hawaii Restaurant Association joins us. That's Sheryl Matsuoka. Hi, Sheryl. Nice to see your smiling face.
Hi, Jay. Thank you so much again for having us on.
And the handsome guy on the other screen is Mark Spain. He is a big person when it comes to restaurants and the Restaurant Association of Hawaii. But I'm going to leave it to Sheryl to make a full and proper introduction of Mark. Go for it. This is your test, Sheryl.
Yes, I would love to introduce Mark Spain, who is the Small Business Administration District Director for the state of Hawaii, the territories of Guam and America Samoa, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of Palau, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. Wow, that is Mark Spain, and he has been amazing. Jay, the reason I wanted to invite Mark back again today was, as you know, on May 3rd, the Small Business Administration started accepting the Restaurant Revitalization Fund grant application. And that fund had $28.6 billion targeted to financially support small food service operations. And that includes, the bakeries, the coffee carts, anybody who's in food service. Since then, a lot has happened. And I wanted to bring back Mark to
Yeah, no, that's totally appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Mark, this is time for you to tell us how it's been going since we spoke a few weeks ago. This is a big thing.
It is, Jay, and we're very grateful. It's been a good team approach. Sometimes in government, operating systems are not maybe the most efficient, but we've been operating at what I call NASA standards, where we are basically making sure that the platform is operated smoothly. The critiques that have come in from our recipients of the grant and what we really refer to as the awards have been very helpful to let us know that our system has been well received. I think it's very clear that our brand is to produce from the time the application is received. Within 14 days of actually looking at the application, we're able to then say, yes, it's suitable, it's an eligible award, and it's then funded into the local bank as prescribed by the applicant. We do know this, we do know that the applications that have been received so far from the priority group of the social and economically disadvantaged, the women-owned businesses and the veteran-owned businesses more than likely will fully consume the 28.6 billion. So we're hopeful that Congress, as I'm sure they will, fund another appropriate amount to meet those that are not in the priority group, but are very substantial. I would say for every application that we have in the priority group, there are 3-to-1 ratio of those in the non-priority groups. So we do have a heavy demand. We're hoping that Congress will consider and provide next week. My opinion, as I read the open press, that the Hill will definitely provide additional money so all can be served through this very effective platform, Jay.
So, who again is in the priority group, and what again is the status right now, the pipeline of money?
Right now, the pipeline of money, of course, is 28.6 billion. And I'm looking at what is basically essentially the full consumption of the pipeline will probably serve the whole needs of the priority applications we already have in the pipeline. And that causes me to think that Congress will have to appropriate more money. So we don't have, and I repeat, don't have what happened to the PPP program last August when it stopped, and then we didn't have relief for those that needed PPP until January of this year. I'm hopeful that Congress has learned from that experience that this very popular program, as smooth as it's operated, let's continue to have the positive experience with it by making sure it's adequately funded, Jay.
So, have checks been actually sent out and received by members of the priority group?
Yes, we already know, and according to the talking points, I'm going to provide to you probably statistics along with Sheryl toward the end of this week, what we call the updates. Yes, we understand right now that close to 37,000 approvals and disbursements have occurred. Some of them have occurred as early as the middle of last week. And from what I understand from talking with Sheryl anecdotally, that the monies are arriving in the accounts, and we're proud of that fact. But we know that we have some bad actors out there, Jay. We've had people who aren't really in the food delivery business at all. But what we learned from the PPP platform was the ability to filter those bad actors out. And that's been a good thing, so that we don't let our reviewers, the manual reviewers, be delayed in terms of getting these applications and then later funded for deposit into the accounts of the small businesses that we are serving, whether it be food trucks or be it restaurants.
So if I look at the Hawaii landscape, I look at the constituencies in the Sheryl's Restaurant Association. What kind of restaurants does it include?
Well, if you look at the restaurants.sba.gov, you can get a complete list for your viewers. The key thing is it excludes three things. It excludes any publicly traded restaurant organizations. That's number one. I don't mean franchises, but restaurant organizations that have more than 20 locations. Those are the two that are excluded. The other thing, I'll give you another example. In Las Vegas, you have casinos. They cannot, if they have a restaurant inside their operation, they have to at least contribute 67% of the revenue for that casino, or it won't be eligible. So restaurants at this point are typically going to be outside of what we call major facilitators. Hotels that have restaurants have however been accepted. So we do find that we're getting some decisions made on eligibility because of how we've designed the system to be algorithm based, so that we don't have a lot of people making manual decisions. But so far, we have food trucks. We have people. I just visited a farm behind Kaiser High School on the weekend. They have a food access to the front of their property, which is on a street there in Hawaii Kai. They're eligible. We also have people in the farmers markets where we're going to be helping them in the coming week, how they can be also considered as eligible. And many of them have already filed applications because they go to a farmer's market in Waipahu, or they go to a farmer's market in Ewa, and that's where the primary source of their revenue comes from. So it's been a broad spectrum, if you will, of applicants that are approved.
The way it works under the algorithm, how much does a restaurant get, well, roughly in terms of a range of possible dollars?
I'll give you a good example. Let's assume that restaurant A, let's say they had a full operational year in 2019, and they had a less than stellar year in 2020. Let's assume that in year 2019, as proved by their own tax return filing, which we use line 1C, if you're dealing, for example, with a profit and loss statement, we are looking at about $1 million, let's say. And then we look at 2020. They haven't filed their taxes, so they give us the P&L up through March 11. And we have found that they have maybe $350,000 in revenue. The difference between those two numbers will typically be the award.
Okay. So Sheryl, is this helping your members? What kind of feedback have you had?
Absolutely, Jay. I wanted to give a huge thank you to the Small Business Administration and Mark and his team. Everyone told me on that day, 3rd, when they uploaded all their forms to the portal, it was seamless. It was just so smooth. Everybody's experience has been positive. I had one gal that was talking to me till like 1 p.m. But other than that, she was doing things in between, trying to pull her records. She all was uploaded. Jay, I know for a fact of a few restaurants in Hawaii that has already had the money in their bank account deposited because they're calling me. Tears. So happy that they got the money.
Fabulous.
Really.
So, and this comes at a time, Mark, when the CDC, Rochelle Walensky, has indicated that you don't have to wear a mask. Now, that's not quite complete in Hawaii, which is okay with me. But the fact is that people generally have the sense that we've been through the worst of it. And indeed, people have the sense that it's time to go back to restaurants. I say this only because I've gone back to restaurants. So, and that is really something. I had company visit me, and therefore, what are you going to do? You gonna sit around and watch the same cable movies? No, you have to go to a restaurant for sure. And that, it's a congenial social experience. You can't do without it. And so, while my brother was here, we went out to a number of restaurants. So this somehow is an interesting intersection that you have the revitalization fund money coming in. You have these restaurants that are, so happy, have been saved, even, in duress like this. And you have people like me going back. How does it play, Mark? I mean, it seems to me that we have a renaissance going on, don't we?
We do. And I think one of the things that I've enjoyed is how people are very creative when it comes to the mask wearing. Because normally, when I went to Roy's restaurant with my family a week ago in Hawaii Kai, and of course, they do the typical contact tracing. And also, I found that I had to wait till 8 o'clock in the evening of that particular night to get a reservation opening. So they were very, very busy, and that was good. But I've really found it was helpful to keep the mask off, how I could very carefully use my salad, how I very carefully would sip my Mai Tai. And that mask stayed off for almost the entire 2 hours I was in that restaurant. So the mask outside, I'm a veteran, I'm 100% vaccinated. And according to CDC guidelines, I'm wearing my mask only when I'm required to do so in a closed room. And part of the Good Morning America program that was done last Friday, which we've shared with the community, they said, fine, don't have to wear a mask for your picture. But then this morning, when I had that submitted to my SBA Daily, my internal publication, oh, we can't use your picture because you're not wearing a mask. And I said, I don't think so. I went back and went straight to the administrator and said, I'm not going to take this. I want this published. I have a good looking guy and I'm 75 and proud of it. So we had a little few chuckles out of that.
And handsome.
Yeah, well, I'll accept that as opinion of the ladies, including Sheryl.
Well, this is just important to the economy and all that. But I wonder how much work does it require for the SBA? Because it's automated to a certain degree. It's happening in Washington to a certain degree. It's direct deposit. It's online. If I want to file an application, I suppose I still can, although the chances are it's going to be used up by the people already filed. But what about you? Are you under a burden with this revitalization program, or is this the matter of keeping numbers on it?
Well, I don't view it as a burden. I view it as a community service. I think I was watching a movie not too long ago with John Wayne called The Sands of Iwo Jima. And when I recognized the burden that many of my former colleagues, way many generations before me, I find that when I make calls to people on the weekends to answer their questions, I know that I'm working 18-hour days. And that is probably the joy. It's almost like that old priceless commercial that came out of MasterCard not some time back. This is the value of this, or this is the value of that. But this type of service is a joy. And yes, I'm tired at the end of the day. A glass of wine overlooking the backside of Mauna Lua Bay doesn't hurt to have me go to sleep well, but I enjoy what I'm doing. And the passion for serving the community is the hallmark of my present existence at SBA. And I've got a great team who can't work the hours I do because of union agreements, but I definitely make sure they're supported and covered.
It's visible, John. It really is. Mark, so Mark, let me ask you this though. I mean, it's a one-shot payment, isn't it? And so you get the payment. You as a restaurant owner try to apply it in the best way possible. But then that's it. Until Congress decides to put another tranche of money into it. So query, is this going to help somebody who has a restaurant that has suffered for a year, that has dug deep into the pockets of his owners, who exhausted all the savings and resources and other funding? What happens when it runs out for a particular beneficiary?
Well, I think at this point, because we're dealing with, first of all, the return of tourism to Hawaii, we know that there are moves afoot to make travel to the mainland easier, or to inner islands, I should say, easier. We're hoping that it goes expanded to both westbound traffic and eastbound traffic to the islands. We're of the opinion, unlike PPP, when it was initially launched last year, we thought that the virus, based on the knowledge of the time, was going to be an 8 to 12 week experience and would go away. Well, obviously it didn't. I think the timing of the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is going to be, shall we say, seamless with the recovery of the restaurants in their business day as we move forward. And I think as Governor Ige will listen to those county and mayors across the state, that hopefully opening up sooner will even make the restaurants more comfortable that this money from the Restaurant Revitalization Fund will be sufficient. One caveat, though, Jay, it has to be funded with more money to meet all the needs of the nation. And there are speculations out there, it could be anywhere between $100 to $130 billion more to meet the need. And I'm of the opinion that Congress is hearing that message. Hopefully they'll act in a timely manner.
Yeah, yeah, those guys have to eat too, you know.
Oh, yes.
They like restaurants. But let me ask you this,
Sure.
another related issue, Mark, is, what about the normal ebb and flow of SBA loans, of SBA benefits that you provide the public, and for that matter, the restaurant industry, while this is happening? Before COVID, the SBA was linked at the hip with restaurants, with the Restaurant Association, restaurant industry. What about the normal ebb and flow of SBA benefits, loans, what have you? Is that continuing, or is that on hold?
No, it is continuing. I think what we're seeing is obviously those that have been impacted mostly from the hospitality industry have found maybe a closer scrutiny of their particular, if they're going for a 7A loan, which is the normal business mix of 4 different products, or what we call the 504 loan, which is used by our local CDC called HEDCO, where they do 40% to a debenture and 50% is done by the bank. Typically, those have continued to be done by our major banks involved with the 504 and 7A programs. It's only been the hospitality industry, and specifically the food and restaurant businesses, that have had to undergo greater scrutiny. But I will tell you that the amount of disbursements that we have made, I will provide on the next available program. We're going to have an update at the end of the month, Jay. You would be surprised. We've done more loans in terms of transaction counts in the last year and 15 months than we've done in the prior 30 years of activity.
Good for you. Good for you. So my comment a minute ago, I like your feedback on it, is my expectation is that the amount of money that's available to restaurants in Hawaii under the revitalization program is accounted for. It's already marked. And so if I put in an application right now today, which I assume I can do online and all that, I know Sheryl can help me, and so can you, Mark, if I get into that. But the question is, should I? Is it worth my while to get online right now and go through that process in the expectation there will be funding for it?
You have nothing to lose by going through and doing the filing. You have nothing to lose. The bottom line is Congress has the responsibility of the purse. The president has the responsibility of signing the appropriation. We have the responsibility of taking a proactive step and file that application. I know that right now, and talking before we went on live, that the number of applications in the queue are right now approaching over 200,000 or more. I don't have the exact number. The White House keeps those numbers pretty much to itself, but in the press and the public domain, that tells you the amount of applications that have been done. My estimate, strictly through extrapolation, is roughly 15,000 of those applications are coming from Hawaii itself. And so that would be a mix of both the priority group as well as the non-priority group, okay? But what we really have to keep focused in terms of our congressional delegation, and this means the media as well, is they've got to talk to our Congress professionals and say, senators and congressmen and women, you need to make sure that the money for the RRF does not lapse. And that needs to be expressed in terms, no matter where we are. It could be Kaimuki, it could be Kalihi, it could be Kapolei. It has to be understood by our congressionals that this is a need that won't go away. And how sad it would be if we don't have that funding become seamless. It's like a quilt, as I was telling Sheryl earlier. We've got to keep the quilt on the bed so that everyone can get a good night's rest of having worked very well in their restaurant. Seamless.
Hey, Cheryl, it seems to me that COVID is not the last COVID. I mean, our shows about the pandemic revealed to me that we live in a time when we may be able to beat this COVID here in the next several months, knock wood, but there'll be another one, and it'll be similar, and we have to be prepared for it and all that. So my question for you, and despite the fact that you've had conversations with some of your members where they have been very appreciative, and this is life and death for them to have this revitalization money from the SBA. But my question is this something that you think we ought to do going forward? For how can we help restaurants in times of crisis? Because there will be other crises. I could start ticking them off. It goes from bad weather, all the way to pandemics. And restaurants always suffer in a crisis. So what can we do going forward? What do you want to ask Mark and the SBA and Congress for the industry, after we have gone through this current pandemic?
After we go through this current pandemic, Jay, not only funding for specifically what Mark is talking about, your expenses and everything, then there's rent relief. As you know, our largest expenses is rent and in the employees. Local people, the locals can support, just like how you did when your brother was in town. Right now, if you have a graduation gift, a Father's Day gift, or even a birthday gift, buy a restaurant card, buy a gift card from your favorite restaurant. That not only supports the restaurant, but all of the suppliers, the farmers, the fishermen, the distributors to that restaurant. But the big message to our national delegation is, you're right, Jay, we need more funds, and we need to be, as you know, Hawaii isn't really a business-friendly state. And so we have our challenges here in Hawaii. And wouldn't it be nice if it was more business-friendly for not only restaurants, but business in general? We're going to need that moving forward, because you're right. Maybe another pandemic. I'm praying, not. I pray not another 9/11. I pray not another, we've been through it, Jay, you and I, all of these different challenges throughout the years. The economic downfall in 2008, something will happen again, and we need more support. And you're right, business friendly would be number one at the top of the list.
Yeah, good. And that's the attitude to have. I think we want to keep our businesses going, but it's got to be well managed. And I think the SBA is capable of managing it well, nationally and locally. Mark, when we spoke last time, you indicated that a given restaurant that had failed, that had closed its doors, would not qualify. That you only were providing this revitalization funding to a restaurant that was in business, and I mean, aside from other conditions, in business, and was still operating and maybe suffering. So I'm thinking of the group of restaurateurs now that did fail, because Sheryl and I have talked to them, and it's really sad sometimes. They put their whole lives into the restaurant. It's like an extension of their life at home, their kitchen. That's what it is. It's a hard business, and I'm wondering, about those people, because they're capable of running a restaurant. They're capable of resurrecting their restaurants. Now, they may not qualify for the revitalization fund, but when they come back to you, when we have a resurrection of the industry here in the next few months, knock wood, what will you be able to offer them to get them back on their feet in a new company, a new restaurant a new entrepreneurial activity? Will you be able to help them and how much?
The answer to your question is going to be based upon two hypotheticals, given the way you framed it. Number one, this country has been very good when things have gone beyond the control of a given industry, let's say, for example, and there maybe is not an immediate action for like another type of funding that would go for those that have permanently closed restaurants. It could be the fact that there could be reparations for the decisions made by government that cause these people to fail through no fault of their own. I would not be surprised, based upon the current mindset, if we have the American Rescue Plan, we should have an American Reconsideration Plan for those that suffered dramatically during this pandemic. I will tell you, the biggest concern I have in terms of saying that in that hypothetical way is we have to get away from fear. A very famous president said very, very clearly, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And when I look at other districts that I collaborate with, like I was in Mississippi not too long ago, and I was also through Texas, I find that the restaurant industry has not suffered as dramatically as those that have been in states more like ourselves, California and Hawaii. And I think that reparation mindset, I think, will come full force into government. And I'll tell you why. The 2022 elections were not that far away. So I have a feeling that if SBA is given some latitude in how it applies, or the banks themselves have some form of guarantee support that could bring what I call the reparation class back, that may be the way we will see those that have been permanently closed, at least for now, will have a chance to reopen. And maybe it too will be a different kind of renaissance, Jay. That's how I feel about it today.
Oh, that's good of you. That's altruistic, I think, beyond the call. So, what we have is, a bunch of these entrepreneurs who have failed, and we have at the same time we have the possibility of ongoing revitalization money. At the same time, we have people like me and others who are going back to restaurants. So, it's not a bad moment. It's a moment in which you could be somewhat optimistic. And I think it's also, it seems to me, it's a moment which you can be optimistic about the SBA. This kind of program hasn't existed before. Am I right? For the SBA. Last time we did this kind of stuff was in FDR's time, in the Works Progress Administration and the like, where we built infrastructure and otherwise provided funding for companies that were involved in that. Fast forward for how many years now? It's 80 years since then, and 90, yeah. And here we are, and the SBA is involved in this. This is a new experience. I mean, it's not only the bad experience of COVID, but it's America finding itself, don't you think? And things will, I think, never change for the SBA. You have entered into a new chapter. Am I right?
Absolutely have, and you're receiving talk behind the halls of Congress about making SBA a direct lender once again. That hasn't been done for 40 years.
Yeah, I remember when I was practicing, you want an SBA loan, what you get is an endorsement from the SBA approving the loan, and then the bank makes the loan.
Right.
So I would like to see, and I think there are many people like me, I would like to see the SBA make the loan directly. So if you think that's in the cards, it's a good thing.
It's being discussed.
Great. Sheryl, we're almost out of time. And, I want to say, that you and I have been doing this for the duration of COVID. We've been talking to Mark and others about, these programs for the duration of COVID. And now it looks pretty good. What is the mood within the industry? What is the mood within not only the owners and entrepreneurs, the ones who have, skin in the game, but the staffs and the kitchen staff and the front of the house staff? How are they feeling? You must be in touch with them.
Oh, absolutely. They saw with spring break, April sales were a little better than the previous March and February. And then now it's May with Mother's Day. They saw a big resurgence of people coming back to the restaurant. So they're really, happy. And the front of the house, the servers, the kitchen, they're so happy. But that trickles down to now we can order more food from the farmers, produce. local fisheries, we can support the local industries. But Jay, even though we've seen the uptick in March, April, and May, that still doesn't even consider the huge hole that COVID left in 2020. Huge, huge hole. And we're still digging ourselves out of that hole, Jay. So we're hoping that come this summer, we see the tourism return and we see things get back to normalcy. Today I saw in the news that we're going to open back up schools, in August. So we're hoping everything gets back to normal because we still need to dig out of that hole, Jay. And we're hoping that people will come back out to the restaurants or, like I mentioned, buy a gift card or order a takeout and support our local restaurants.
Absolutely. But as a community, including the revitalization program and the Restaurant Association, I think we can't let complacency get ahead of us. We still have to be somewhat cautious. We have to watch the science, watch the CDC. We have to watch the numbers, in order to avoid, the kind of experience we had last year. We weren't paying enough attention. But you are, Mark. Thank you very much for paying attention. Thank you for your diligence and commitment on behalf of the SBA. And
Semper
the
Fi,
same to
Jay.
Semper Fi, Semper Paratus, if you don't mind.
You bet.
Thank you, Sheryl. I really enjoy the shows that you put together. It's an important window into the essence of our economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheryl.